The rooftop of the Eco-Atlantic Towers glittered beneath 1,000 hanging lanterns. Legos sprawled beneath like scattered diamonds against black velvet. Zuri Okafor stood at the center of her 25th birthday celebration, wearing an emerald osso oak gown that made her dark skin glow like burnished bronze beneath the moonlight. Champagne glasses clinked. Laughter rose. Her mother beamed from across the terrace. Then the elevator doors opened. Every voice died. Kang Taehyun stepped onto the rooftop. Impeccably dressed in black. His dark eyes found her immediately across 100 guests. In his hands he carried a single black gift box. Zuri's champagne glass trembled. She never sent him an invitation. She hadn't spoken to him in 3 years. Yet here he stood, looking at her as though no time had passed at all. He walked through the frozen crowd. Stopped directly before her. Extended the box. "Happy birthday, Zuri." Her voice came out barely above a whisper. "Who told you where I was?" Taehyun's expression remained unreadable. "The same person who told me you were still wearing the bracelet." Zuri's blood turned cold. She wasn't wearing any bracelet tonight. Which meant he knew something she hadn't told anyone. Please like, share and subscribe. The rooftop terrace had been transformed into a garden of floating lights. Zuri had designed every detail herself. The suspended orchids, the golden table settings, the live jazz quartet playing softly near the infinity pool that overlooked Lagos Island. 3 months of planning. 72 hours without sleep during the final week. Everything had been perfect. Till now. Zuri stared at the black gift box in Kang Taehyun's outstretched hands. The box was matte, elegant, tied with a single silver ribbon. It looked expensive. It looked deliberate. It looked like a threat disguised as generosity. "I didn't invite you," she said quietly, aware that every guest within earshot had stopped breathing. Taehyun tilted his head slightly. The movement was minimal. Controlled. The faint light caught the edge of a tattoo climbing his neck. Korean characters she had once traced with her fingernail 3 years ago in a hotel room in Seoul. She forced herself to look away from it. "You stopped inviting me into your life," he replied, his voice low and measured. "That doesn't mean I stopped remembering the day you were born." Someone behind Zuri gasped softly. She recognized the voice. Her mother. Of course her mother would remember him. Everyone remembered Kang Taehyun. 3 years ago his face had appeared on the cover of Forbes Asia. The silent wolf they called him. 25 years old and already controlling a technology empire worth $12 billion. Hotels in Tokyo. Data centers in Singapore. Real estate across Europe. What the magazines never mentioned was the darkness beneath the suits. The whispered rumors about his family's connections to Seoul's underground. The men who disappeared after crossing him. The silence that followed his name in certain rooms. Zuri had learned about that darkness the hard way. And she had fled from it. "Take the gift," Taehyun said. It wasn't a request. Zuri's fingers curled at her sides. "I don't want anything from you. Then throw it away after I leave." His eyes never left hers. "But you will take it. Because you know what's inside. And you know why I brought it tonight." Her heart slammed against her ribs. Oh, he couldn't possibly know. She had buried that secret so deep. "Zuri." A warm hand touched her lower back. She flinched before recognizing the voice. David Adebayo stepped beside her, his tall frame partially blocking Taehyun from her view. His handsome face carried concern rather than aggression, but his posture said everything his words did not. "Back off. Is everything all right?" David asked gently. Zuri exhaled shakily. "Yes. Fine. This is an old acquaintance." "Acquaintance," Taehyun repeated. The word came out flat. Almost amused. David extended his hand. "David Adebayo. I'm a friend of Zuri's." Taehyun looked at the offered hand for exactly 2 seconds longer than politeness allowed. Then he shook it. "Kang Taehyun. Korean?" David asked. "Yes." "Business associate?" Taehyun's gaze slid back to Zuri. "Something like that." The tension became suffocating. Zuri stepped forward quickly, taking the gift box from Taehyun's hands before anyone else could speak. "Thank you for coming," she said, her voice brittle with forced politeness. "I'll open it later. Please enjoy the party." She turned away. Behind her she felt his eyes follow her across the terrace. She felt them even when she descended the spiral staircase. Even when she locked herself in the private restroom 2 floors below. Even when she finally looked down at the gift box in her trembling hands. The bathroom was white marble and gold fixtures. Soft lighting. A sanctuary away from the rooftop chaos. Zuri set the box on the counter and stared at it. Her reflection stared back. Elegant updo, flawless makeup. The emerald gown that had cost her 3 months of savings. She looked like a woman in control. He felt like a woman drowning. Why did he come? How did he know? What does he want after all this time? Her fingers trembled as she pulled the silver ribbon loose. The box opened silently. Inside, resting on black velvet, was a single photograph. Old. Faded at the edges. Creased down the center as though someone had folded and unfolded it hundreds of times. Zuri's breath stopped. It was a photograph of her. 3 years ago. Standing on a bridge in Seoul. Wearing a white sundress. Laughing at something outside the frame. And on her wrist, barely visible but unmistakable, was a thin silver bracelet. The bracelet she had thrown into the Han River the night she left Korea. The bracelet Kang Taehyun had given her the first night they spent together. The bracelet that was supposed to mean forever. Zuri's knees buckled. She caught herself against the counter, gasping for air. He kept this photograph. For 3 years. He kept it. Tears burned her eyes, but she refused to let them fall. She had cried enough over Kang Taehyun. She had cried oceans. She had cried until her chest felt hollow and her voice gave out and her mother held her through nightmares she couldn't explain. She would not cry again. Not tonight. Not for him. She shoved the photograph back into the box, slammed the lid shut and stared at her reflection. Get through tonight, she told herself. Then figure out what he wants. Then make him leave. Forever this time. She straightened her gown. Fixed her expression. Practiced the polite smile she had perfected over years of client meetings and difficult negotiations. Then she unlocked the bathroom door and returned to her party. The rooftop had recovered from Taehyun's arrival. Conversations resumed. The jazz quartet played something soft and melancholy. Champagne continued to flow. But Zuri noticed the whispers. The glances. The way her mother stood near the bar with her arms crossed, watching her with questions in her eyes. And she noticed Kang Taehyun. He hadn't left. He stood near the edge of the rooftop, looking out over Lagos as though he owned it. His hands were in his pockets. His posture was relaxed. But there was nothing relaxed about the way the other guests avoided him. Nothing relaxed about the way his security, 3 men in dark suits she hadn't even noticed, lingered near the elevator doors. Nothing relaxed about the way David Adebayo watched him from across the terrace with barely concealed suspicion. Zuri crossed to her mother. Don't, her mother said before Zuri could speak. Mama. I said don't. Her mother's voice was low but fierce. That man. The Korean. He's the one, isn't he? The one from 3 years ago. The one who broke you. Zuri's jaw tightened. He didn't break me. Then why are your hands shaking? Zuri looked down. Her mother was right. Her hands were trembling against the champagne glass she didn't remember picking up. I'm fine, she said. You're lying. Her mother's eyes softened. Zuri, what happened in Korea? You never told me the truth. You came home in the middle of the night, sobbing, and refused to explain anything. You threw yourself into work. You pretended everything was fine. But I'm your mother. I know when my daughter is running from something. Zuri swallowed hard. You wouldn't understand, she wanted to say. You don't know what he is. You don't know what I did. You don't know what I sacrificed to keep this family safe. But she said none of that. Instead, she kissed her mother's cheek and whispered, I'll explain everything. Just not tonight. Then she walked away. She didn't mean to approach him. Her body moved without permission. One moment she was crossing the terrace toward the dessert table. The next she was standing 3 feet behind Kang Taehyun, staring at the back of his perfectly tailored jacket. He didn't turn around. But he knew she was there. Beautiful city, he said quietly. I can see why you came back. I came back because this is my home. Is it? He finally turned. His dark eyes moved across her face slowly, cataloging every detail. Or did you come back because you were running from something? Her heart stuttered. You don't know anything about why I left. I know more than you think. Then enlighten me. He stepped closer. close enough that she could smell his cologne, sandalwood and something darker beneath it. You disappeared, he said, his voice barely above a whisper. 3 years ago. No explanation. No goodbye. I woke up and you were gone. Your phone was disconnected. Your apartment was empty. Every trace of you had vanished. And you're surprised? Her voice cracked despite her best efforts. After what I saw. After what I learned about who you really are. Something flickered across his face. Pain maybe. Or anger. Or both. What exactly do you think you saw, Zuri? I saw enough. You saw what someone wanted you to see. The words hit her like a physical blow. What? Taehyun's jaw tightened. I spent 3 years searching for you. 3 years trying to understand why the woman He stopped himself. His hands flexed at his sides. I spent 3 years believing you betrayed me. That you took what you wanted and ran. That everything between us was a lie. That's not true, she whispered. Then why did you leave? Because staying would have destroyed me. The words exploded out of her before she could stop them. Several nearby guests turned toward them. Zuri froze. Taehyun didn't move. Didn't react. His face remained perfectly controlled. But his eyes, his dark, piercing eyes, burned with something raw and wounded beneath the surface. Then tell me the truth, he said quietly. Tell me what happened. Tell me why you ran. Because I have spent 3 years living with questions that have no answers. And I am tired of not knowing. Zuri's chest ached. She wanted to tell him. God, she wanted to tell him everything. But the truth was a weapon. And weapons in the wrong hands caused destruction. This isn't the place, she said finally. Then when? I don't know. That's not good enough. It's all I have. Silence stretched between them. Somewhere behind Zuri, the jazz quartet transitioned to a slower song. I'm staying at the Four Seasons, Taehyun said. Presidential suite. I'll be in Lagos for 2 weeks. Why? Business. That's not the only reason. He almost smiled. Almost. No. It's not. He reached into his jacket pocket and withdrew a small card. Plain white. No markings except a phone number written in elegant script. When you're ready to talk, he said, call me. He placed the card on the railing between them. Then he walked past her toward the elevator. Zuri didn't turn around. She listened to his footsteps fade. Listened to the elevator doors open and close. Listened to the sound of her own heartbeat thundering in her ears. Only when she was certain he was gone did she pick up the card. 3 years earlier, Seoul, South Korea. The first time Zuri saw Kang Taehyun, she didn't know who he was. She was 22. Fresh out of university. Working as a junior designer for a Lagos-based luxury event company that had somehow landed a contract with one of Seoul's most exclusive hotels. The job was supposed to be simple. Assist with the design for an international tech summit. 3 weeks in Korea. Good experience. Excellent pay. No one warned her about the man who owned the hotel. She was arranging centerpieces in the grand ballroom when he walked in. The sharp jaw. Dark eyes that swept the room like a predator assessing prey. He wore a black suit that probably cost more than her entire year's salary. A thin silver watch glinted on his wrist. His hair was dark and perfectly styled. He looked like he had stepped out of a magazine spread. Or a crime drama. The flowers are wrong, he said. Zuri blinked. Excuse me. He pointed at the centerpiece she was adjusting. White roses. The summit's theme is innovation. White represents tradition, stagnation, mourning in some cultures. The message is contradictory. His English was perfect. Accent barely noticeable. Tone flat and precise. Zuri stared at him. And you are the person paying for this event. Understanding dawned. Oh no. She had just argued with the client. The most important client her company had ever worked with. I apologize, she said quickly. I was following the original design specifications, but if you prefer different flowers, I can absolutely. You were following specifications created by people who don't understand symbolism. He walked closer, studying the arrangement. You, however, noticed something was wrong. I saw it in your face the moment you touched them. Zuri hesitated. I may have had concerns. Then why didn't you say something? Because I'm a junior designer. My job is to follow instructions, not question them. He looked at her directly for the first time. His gaze was unsettling. Too intense. Too knowing. What's your name? Zuri. Zuri Okafor. Nigerian. Yes. You're far from home, Zuri Okafor. So are the flowers. The corner of his mouth twitched. Almost a smile. Replace them. Use whatever you think works better. Bill the additional cost to my office. Just like that. Just like that. He turned to leave. Wait, Zuri called before she could stop herself. You didn't tell me your name. He paused at the doorway. Kang Taehyun. Then he was gone. She replaced the flowers with deep blue hydrangeas and silver orchids. The summit was a success. 3 days later she received a handwritten note delivered to her hotel room. The flowers were perfect. Dinner tonight. 8 p.m. The restaurant on the 42nd floor. No signature. But she knew who it was from. She told herself she wouldn't go. She went anyway. The restaurant occupied the entire top floor of the hotel. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the Seoul skyline. The tables were draped in white linen. A live pianist played softly in the corner. Kang Taehyun was waiting at a private table near the window. He rose when she approached, a small gesture of respect that surprised her. You came, he said. I almost didn't. What changed your mind? Curiosity. She sat across from him. And the fact that I've never eaten at a restaurant this expensive before. Honesty. I appreciate that. Most people lie to impress you. Most people lie because they want something from me. He signaled to a waiter. What would you like to drink? Water. Just water. I make better decisions sober. Another almost smile. Noted. That first dinner lasted 3 hours. They talked about everything and nothing. Art. Architecture. The differences between Lagos and Seoul. The pressure of family expectations. The loneliness of always being the outsider in a room full of people who wanted something from you. By the time dessert arrived, Zuri realized something terrifying. He liked him. Not his money. Not his power. Not the way people stared when he walked into a room. He liked the way he listened. The way he asked questions. The way his controlled exterior occasionally cracked to reveal something vulnerable beneath. You're not what I expected, she said. Neither are you. What did you expect? He considered the question carefully. Someone easier to understand. Zuri laughed. Is that a compliment? It's the truth. He leaned forward slightly. Most people are simple. They want obvious things. Money, power, recognition. But you... I can't figure out what you want. Maybe I don't know what I want yet. That's the most honest thing anyone has ever said to me. That night he walked her to her hotel room. They stood in the hallway. Inches apart. The air between them charged with something neither acknowledged. I shouldn't see you again, Zuri said. Why? Because you're a client. Because I'm only here for 3 weeks. Because you're clearly dangerous and I have enough complications in my life. He didn't deny any of it. You're right, he said. You shouldn't see me again. Then he leaned down and kissed her cheek, just her cheek so gently that she barely felt it. Good night, Zuri Okafor. He walked away. And she stood in that hallway for 5 full minutes, trying to convince her heart to stop racing. She saw him again the next day. And the day after that. And every day for the remaining 2 weeks of her contract. They visited temples. Art galleries. Street markets where vendors shouted in rapid Korean and Taehyun translated with surprising patience. He showed her his favorite cafe. A tiny place in Insadong that served tea so expensive she was afraid to drink it. She showed him videos of Lagos nightlife on her phone, laughing at his bewildered expression when he heard Afrobeats for the first time. This is what you dance to? He asked, genuinely perplexed. This is what everyone dances to. Try to move your hips. My hips don't move. Everyone's hips move. Korean hips are different. She laughed until her sides hurt. And somewhere in those 2 weeks, without either of them noticing, the boundaries between client and contractor dissolved entirely. On her last night in Seoul, he took her to a bridge. The bridge stretched across the Han River, its lights reflected in the dark water below. I have something for you, he said. He reached into his pocket and withdrew a small velvet box. Zuri's breath caught. Taehyun. It's not what you think. He opened the box to reveal a thin silver bracelet. Simple. Elegant. A single Korean character dangled from the chain. What does it mean? She asked. He said softly. Young one. Forever. Her heart stopped. I'm not asking you to stay, he continued, his voice unusually hesitant. I know you have a life in Lagos. A career. A family. I know 2 weeks isn't enough time to build something permanent. He fastened the bracelet around her wrist. But I want you to know that whatever this is between us, whatever we've become, it matters to me. More than I expected. More than I know how to explain. Zuri stared at the bracelet. Then at him. What are you saying? I'm saying that I want to see you again. After tonight. After you go home. I'm saying that I'm not ready for this to end. Tears pricked her eyes. Taehyun. You don't have to answer now. He took her hands gently. Just think about it. That's all I'm asking. He didn't think. She kissed him instead. They spent that night together. In his penthouse apartment overlooking the city. Wrapped in each other. Talking until dawn. Planning a future that seemed for the first time genuinely possible. She flew back to Lagos the next morning. They texted every day. Video calls every weekend. Plans for him to visit Nigeria. Plans for her to return to Seoul. Plans that felt real and solid in theirs. Then everything shattered. 6 months later. Zuri returned to Seoul for what was supposed to be the happiest trip of her life. Taehyun had invited her to meet his family. A formal dinner. An acknowledgement that their relationship was serious. She bought a new dress. Practiced Korean phrases. Convinced herself that everything would be perfect. She landed at Incheon Airport. He wasn't there to meet her. His assistant was waiting instead, a cold-faced woman named Ms. Park who barely acknowledged Zuri's existence. Mr. Kong sends his apologies, she said flatly. He's been delayed by business. I'll escort you to the hotel. What kind of business? The confidential kind. Zuri waited 3 hours. Then 4. Then 6. By midnight she was pacing her hotel room calling his phone repeatedly. No answer. She tried his private number. Still nothing. Finally at 2 a.m. she received a text from an unknown number. If you want to know the truth about Kang Taehyun, come to the following address. Come alone. Against every instinct she went. The address led to a warehouse in an industrial district south of Seoul. The building was dark. Abandoned. Zuri shouldn't have gone inside. But the need to understand was stronger than fear. She found a room filled with photographs. Images of Taehyun with men she didn't recognize. Men with guns. Men exchanging briefcases of cash. Men lying bloodied on concrete floors. And in the center of the room was a woman. Beautiful. Cring. Elegant in a way that made Zuri feel immediately inferior. You must be the African girl, the woman said in perfect English. The one Taehyun is so obsessed with. Zuri's voice shook. Who are you? Someone who's about to save your life. The woman stepped closer. Kang Taehyun isn't who you think he is. He's not a tech entrepreneur. He's not a legitimate businessman. He's the heir to one of Seoul's most powerful criminal syndicates. The Kang family has controlled the underground for 3 generations. And Taehyun is being groomed to take over everything. I don't believe you. Then look at the photographs. The woman gestured at the walls. Look at the blood on his hands. Look at the empire he's building on corpses and silence. Zuri's knees weakened. The photographs were damning. Irrefutable. No, this can't be real. This can't be. If you stay with him, the woman continued, you will die. Maybe not today. Maybe not tomorrow. But eventually his enemies will come for everyone he loves. That's how this world works. Everyone connected to him becomes a target. She placed an envelope in Zuri's trembling hands. Inside this envelope is enough money to disappear. A new phone. A new identity if you need one. Leave Seoul tonight. Never contact Kang Taehyun again. Forget he ever existed. Why are you doing this? The woman smiled sadly. Because I loved him once too. And I know what it costs. Zuri left Seoul that night. She didn't say goodbye. She didn't answer his calls. She disconnected her phone, changed her number and told her family she had decided Korea wasn't for her. She buried the bracelet at the bottom of the Han River. And she buried her heart alongside it. Present day, Lagos. Zuri stood on the balcony of her apartment, staring at the city lights below. The party had ended hours ago. Her guests had gone home. Her mother had extracted a promise that Zuri would explain everything tomorrow. But tomorrow felt impossibly far away. Because right now all Zuri could think about was the photograph. The photograph that shouldn't exist. The photograph that Kang Taehyun had kept for 3 years. She had been so certain that night in Seoul. So convinced that the woman in the warehouse was telling the truth. But what if she was wrong? What if the photographs were staged? What if someone had deliberately manipulated her into leaving? Her phone buzzed. Unknown number. She answered before she could stop herself. Hello. Silence. Then a voice she didn't recognize. Zuri Okafor. Her blood ran cold. Who is this? A friend. I don't have friends who call from blocked numbers in the middle of the night. Then consider me a concerned stranger. The voice was male. Accented. Possibly Korean. I understand Kang Taehyun visited you tonight. Zuri's grip tightened on the phone. How do you know that? The same way I know he gave you a photograph. The same way I know you've spent the last 3 hours wondering whether everything you believed was a lie. Who are you? Someone who knows the truth. Pause. The woman who came to you that night in Seoul, she wasn't trying to save your life. She was trying to destroy Taehyun's. And she used you to do it. Zuri's heart stopped. You were a weapon, Miss Okafor. A weapon aimed directly at the heart of a man who has never recovered from losing you. The voice hardened. And now that you're back in his orbit, certain people are very interested in using you again. What people? That's not a conversation for the phone. But I suggest you be very careful about who you trust in the coming days. The game you've been dragged into is far more dangerous than you realize. The line went dead. Zuri stood frozen on her balcony, the phone still pressed to her ear. The photograph. The mysterious caller. Taehyun's reappearance. Everything was connected. She just didn't understand how. The Four Seasons. Lagos. The presidential suite occupied the entire top floor of the Four Seasons Lagos. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered panoramic views of the Atlantic Ocean. Marble floors gleamed beneath crystal chandeliers. The furniture was minimalist, expensive, carefully selected. Kang Taehyun stood at the window, his jacket discarded, the top 2 buttons of his black shirt undone. The tattoo on his neck was fully visible now, a wolf silhouette surrounded by Korean characters. Silence is power. He had gotten it at 19, the same year his father had first brought him into the family business. The same year he had learned that the Kang Empire was built on more than technology investments. His phone buzzed. He glanced at the screen. Incoming call. Director Shin. He answered. Report. The celebration ended 30 minutes ago. Director Shin's voice was crisp and professional. Miss Okafor has returned to her apartment. She's alone. And our secondary target? The man who escorted her at the party, David Adebayo. We've compiled a full dossier. Architect. 31 years old. No criminal affiliations. No financial irregularities. He appears to be exactly what he presents himself as. Which means what? Genuine romantic interest, sir. They've been seen together multiple times over the past year. Social media suggests they're. I don't care about social media. Pause. Understood, sir. Taehyun's hand tightened around the phone. What about the other matter? We've traced the photographs that were shown to Miss Okafor 3 years ago. As you suspected, they were fabricated. The woman who delivered them, Han So-yeon, was working under orders. Whose orders? We're still confirming. But initial evidence points toward someone within the Kang organization. Taehyun went very still. Someone inside the family, he repeated quietly. Possibly, sir. We're investigating. Silence stretched for several seconds. I want names within 48 hours, Taehyun said finally. And I want Han So-yeon located. Quietly. Understood. The line disconnected. Taehyun lowered the phone and stared at the city below. 3 years. For 3 years he had believed that Zuri Okafor had used him. That she had accepted his affection, his gifts, his vulnerability, and then vanished without explanation. For 3 years he had convinced himself that the pain was his own fault. That he had been weak. That he had allowed emotion to compromise his judgment. That he would never make that mistake again. But now the truth was beginning to surface. And the truth was uglier than anything he had imagined. Someone had deliberately destroyed his relationship with Zuri. Someone had staged photographs, hired an actress, constructed an elaborate lie designed to make her believe he was a monster. And that someone was likely inside his own organization. Maybe inside his own family. Taehyun walked to the bar and poured himself 2 fingers of whiskey. He rarely drank. Alcohol dulled the senses. Made people sloppy. Made them reveal things they should keep hidden. But tonight he needed something to quiet the noise in his head. The noise that sounded like Zuri's voice. Who told you where I was? Because staying would have destroyed me. She had sounded so certain. So terrified. Not of him, not exactly, but of what she believed he represented. He had seen it in her eyes. The fear. The conviction. The walls she had built so high that even standing 3 feet away felt like shouting across a canyon. And underneath all of it, barely visible but unmistakable, he had seen grief. She had loved him once. Maybe part of her still did. But someone had poisoned that love. Twisted it into something unrecognizable. And Taehyun was going to find out who. His phone buzzed again. This time it was a text message. Unknown sender. She received a call tonight. Blocked number. Someone warned her about being used again. Taehyun's blood ran cold. Another player was in the game. Someone who knew about the original manipulation. Someone who was reaching out to Zuri directly. His fingers flew across the screen. Who is the caller? The response came 30 seconds later. Unknown. But the call originated from Seoul. Seoul. Of course. Everything always came back to Seoul. Taehyun drained his whiskey and set the glass down with deliberate care. He had come to Lagos with one objective. Confront Zuri Okafor and demand the truth about why she had abandoned him. But the situation had become far more complicated. Someone was manipulating events. Someone was feeding information to both sides. Someone was playing a game whose rules Taehyun didn't yet understand. And until he understood those rules, everyone he cared about was in danger. Including Zuri. Especially Zuri. He pulled up her contact information on his phone. He had obtained it months ago. Had paid considerable sums to locate her, track her movements, learn everything about the life she had built since leaving Korea. He knew where she worked, where she lived, which clients she met and when, which friends she trusted, which restaurants she frequented. He knew about David Adebayo and the quiet dinners they shared and the way the man looked at her when he thought no one was watching. He knew all of it. And he had done nothing with that knowledge. Until tonight. Tonight something had shifted. He had seen her standing in that rooftop garden, wearing green silk-like armor, and every rational thought had evaporated. 3 years of convincing himself that he was over her. 3 years of building walls around his heart. 3 years of pretending the wound had healed. All of it, gone. Destroyed by a single glance. He remembered the first night they had spent together in Seoul. Her laughter echoing through his apartment. Her fingers tracing the tattoo on his chest. The smaller one above his heart. What does this one mean? She had asked. He hadn't answered immediately. The truth was that the tattoo was his most personal one. A single Korean word inked over his heart on the night his mother died. Love. He had told Zuri it was a family crest. Not quite a lie. But not the full truth either. He hadn't been ready to tell her the full truth. And then she was gone. And he had never had the chance. Taehyun stared at her phone number on his screen. He could call her now. Demand answers. Tell her everything he had discovered about the woman who had manipulated her. But something held him back. If he revealed his cards too soon, whoever was orchestrating this game would simply retreat and regroup. He needed to be patient. He needed to let events unfold naturally. He needed to make certain that when he finally exposed the truth, there would be nowhere for his enemies to hide. And in the meantime, he needed to keep Zuri safe. Whether she wanted his protection or not. He typed a message to Director Shin. Assign a security detail to Zuri Okafor. Discreet. Round the clock. I want to know everyone who approaches her, every location she visits, every phone call she receives. The response came immediately. Understood, sir. Starting when? Taehyun looked out at the sleeping city. No. Zuri's apartment. Lady Lagos. Zuri didn't sleep. She spent the night pacing her apartment, replaying the mysterious phone call over and over. The woman who came to you that night in Seoul, she wasn't trying to save your life. She was trying to destroy Taehyun's. And she used you to do it. The words haunted her. If they were true, If the photographs had been fabricated, if the entire encounter in that warehouse had been staged, then everything she believed for the past 3 years was a lie. Which meant she had abandoned Taehyun for no reason. She had left him without explanation. She had broken both their hearts based on manipulated evidence. No, she told herself fiercely. You saw those photographs. You saw his face. You saw. But what had she actually seen? Images could be doctored. Context could be twisted. A skilled manipulator could make anyone look guilty of anything. And she had been so afraid that night. So desperate to believe that there was a rational explanation for why everything felt wrong. She had wanted an excuse to run. And someone had given her one. By sunrise, Zuri was exhausted but wired. She showered, changed into simple clothes, cream linen pants and a burgundy blouse, and made herself a cup of tea that she didn't drink. Her phone sat on the kitchen counter. Taehyun's number was still programmed into it. She could call him. Demand answers. Tell him about the mysterious caller and see how he reacted. But something held her back. Fear partly. Fear of discovering that she had made an irreversible mistake. Fear of opening wounds that had never truly healed. And beneath the fear, barely acknowledged but undeniable, there was something else. Longing. The desperate, irrational hope that somehow, against all odds, there was still something salvageable between them. A knock at her door interrupted her thoughts. Zuri crossed the apartment warily. Through the peephole she saw a face she recognized. David. She opened the door. He stood in the hallway holding a paper bag and 2 cups of coffee. His expression carried concern, but he didn't push past her or demand explanations. He simply waited. Can I come in? He asked. She stepped aside. They sat on her balcony, watching the morning traffic crawl across the 3rd mainland bridge in the distance. I brought pastries, David said, setting the bag between them. From that place you like in Victoria Island. You didn't have to do that. I know. He handed her a coffee. But you looked like you needed something comforting after last night. Zuri accepted the cup, wrapping her hands around its warmth. You're too kind to me. Not possible. He studied her face carefully. Do you want to talk about it? The man from the party? She hesitated. I don't know where to begin. Start wherever you want. Or don't start at all. Either way, I'm here. The kindness in his voice made her eyes sting. David Adebayo had been her friend for 2 years. They had met through work. He was an architect who occasionally collaborated on her event design projects. Their friendship had deepened gradually, naturally, without pressure or expectations. He had never hidden his romantic interest. But he had also never pushed. He simply showed up. Consistently. Reliably. Without agenda. It was everything Kang Taehyun had never been. His name is Kang Taehyun, Zuri said finally. We met 3 years ago in Seoul. I was working on a project for one of his hotels. David's expression remained neutral. And you became involved. Yes. She stared at her coffee. It was intense. Fast. Unlike anything I had experienced before. He was brilliant and mysterious and powerful, and being with him felt like standing at the edge of a cliff. Terrifying and exhilarating at the same time. What happened? I discovered something about him. About his family. About the world he came from. She paused, choosing her words carefully. It scared me. So I left. Without saying goodbye. And now he's here. Yes. Looking for answers. Looking for something. She finally met David's eyes. I don't know what he wants, David. I don't know why he came tonight. I don't know how he found me. And I don't know if I can trust anything he says. David was quiet for a long moment. Do you still have feelings for him? The question hit her like a blow. She stopped. Swallowed. I don't know. David nodded slowly. That's honest at least. I'm sorry. Don't be. He reached across the table and squeezed her hand gently. You've never lied to me, Zuri. That matters more than you know. She wanted to cry. She wanted to tell him that he deserved someone who was completely available. Someone whose heart wasn't still tangled in the wreckage of a relationship that had ended 3 years ago. But before she could speak, her phone buzzed. She glanced at the screen. Her blood turned to ice. A known number. Excuse me, she murmured, standing and walking inside. She answered the call. Hello. Miss Okafor. The same male voice from last night. We didn't finish our conversation. Who are you? A friend. You keep saying that, but friends usually introduce themselves. In due time. Pause. I have information you need. Information about what really happened 3 years ago. But this conversation cannot happen over the phone. Then where? There's a restaurant called Nok Billionaire. Do you know it? Yes. Meet me there at 1 p.m. Come alone. Why should I trust you? Because I'm the only person willing to tell you the truth. And because if you don't hear what I have to say, you will make the same mistake twice. The line disconnected. Zuri stood frozen in her living room, her heart hammering. She had two choices. Ignore the mysterious caller and continue living in uncertainty. Or walk into what might be a trap, and finally discover what had really happened in Seoul. She chose the trap. Nok Billionaire, Victoria Island. The restaurant was a masterpiece of modern African design. Soaring ceilings, lush greenery, hand-woven textiles and contemporary art installations adorning every wall. Zuri arrived at exactly 1 p.m., dressed conservatively in a navy wrap dress and flat sandals. She scanned the dining room carefully, looking for anyone who might match the voice from the phone. She didn't see anyone obvious. She approached the hostess. I'm meeting someone. I don't know their name. The hostess smiled professionally. You must be Miss Okafor. Right this way. She was led to a private room at the back of the restaurant. Inside, a single table had been set for two. And seated at that table was a man she didn't recognize. He was Korean. Older, perhaps early 50s. His hair was silver at the temples and deep lines framed his mouth. He wore an expensive gray suit but no jewelry, and his hands rested calmly on the table. He rose as she entered. Miss Okafor. Thank you for coming. You have me at a disadvantage, she said carefully. You know my name. I don't know yours. My name is Park Jin-woo. He gestured to the empty chair. Please sit. She sat, maintaining a cautious distance. A waiter appeared, poured water for both of them and retreated silently. Before we begin, Park Jin-woo said, I want to be clear about my intentions. I am not here to harm you. I am not working against your interests. And I am not acting on Kang Taehyun's orders, though he would very much like to know that this meeting is taking place. Then why are you here? Because I owe a debt. Taehyun. And to the woman who was manipulated into destroying him. Zuri's hands tightened in her lap. The woman from the warehouse? Han So-yeon. Park Jin-woo nodded. She was one of my former employees. A skilled operative. Very convincing. When she approached you that night in Seoul, she was following orders from someone very powerful within the Kang organization. Who? Kang Dong. Taehyun's uncle. The name meant nothing to Zuri. But the implication was devastating. His own family, she whispered. The Kang succession has always been complicated. Taehyun's father, Kang Soo-hyun, wanted his son to take over the legitimate side of the business. The technology investments, the real estate. But Dae-young believed the family's real power lay in the underground operations. Drugs. Weapons. Protection rackets. He wanted that power for himself. What does this have to do with me? Park Jin-woo leaned forward slightly. Taehyun was changing. After he met you, he began pulling away from the underground. He started talking about restructuring the organization. Eliminating the criminal elements. Becoming legitimate. That's not possible. It became possible because of you. Zuri's breath caught. You were the catalyst, Park Jin-woo continued. For the first time, Taehyun had something he valued more than power. He had love. He had hope. He had a future that didn't involve blood and silence. His voice hardened. And Dae-young couldn't allow that. Because if Taehyun dismantled the underground, Dae-young would lose everything. So he used me. He used you to destroy Taehyun's transformation. Han So-yeon was sent to show you fabricated evidence. Photographs, documents, testimonies, all designed to make you believe that Taehyun was a monster. She was instructed to terrify you. To convince you that staying with him would result in your death. Zuri felt sick. Every word confirmed her worst fears. She had been played. Manipulated. Weaponized against the man she had loved. Why are you telling me this now? She managed. Because Dae-young's reach extends beyond Korea. Now that Taehyun has found you again, Daeyoung will take action to separate you permanently. And this time he won't rely on manipulation. He'll use more direct methods. You're saying he'll try to kill me. I'm saying you've become a threat again. And threats are eliminated. The room felt smaller suddenly. Colder. What am I supposed to do? Zuri asked quietly. Park Jin-woo reached into his jacket and withdrew a slim folder. Inside this folder is evidence of everything I've told you. Photographs proving the originals were fabricated. Financial records linking Daeyoung to Han So-yeon. Surveillance footage showing that she was on his payroll. He slid the folder across the table. Take this to Taehyun. Tell him what you've learned. And for both your sakes, trust no one else until this is resolved. Zuri stared at the folder. 3 years of pain. 3 years of believing the wrong things about the wrong person. And now finally the truth. She took the folder. The Four Seasons. Presidential Suite. Zuri stood outside the elevator doors on the top floor of the Four Seasons. The folder was clutched against her chest like a shield. Her heart pounded so loudly she was certain the security cameras could pick up the sound. A man in a dark suit stood by the door at the end of the hallway. He watched her approach with professional neutrality. Miss Okafor? Yes. Mr. Kong is expecting you. He opened the door and stepped aside. The presidential suite was larger than her entire apartment. White marble floors. Panoramic windows. Art installations that probably cost more than her car. And at the center of it all, standing with his back to her, was Kong Taehyun. He turned as she entered. For a long moment neither spoke. 3 years of silence stretched between them. 3 years of anger. 3 years of grief. You came, he said finally. I had no choice. She held up the folder. Someone decided I needed to know the truth. His eyes moved to the folder then back to her face. Park Jin-woo. You know him. He worked for my father. Before everything changed. Taehyun crossed toward her slowly. He reached out to me 2 days ago. Told me he had information about what happened 3 years ago. He wouldn't say what, only that it was significant. It's significant. Zuri's voice trembled despite her best efforts. Everything I believed, everything that made me leave, it was manufactured. Your uncle orchestrated the entire thing. The woman in the warehouse. The photographs. The evidence. All of it was designed to make me believe you were dangerous. Taehyun's jaw tightened. And you believed it. I saw photographs of you standing over bodies. I saw financial records showing payments to criminal organizations. I saw lies. I know that now. Tears burned her eyes. But I didn't know it then. I was terrified. I was alone in a foreign country surrounded by people who seemed to hate me. And a woman walked into my life and told me that loving you would get me killed. So you ran. So I survived. Silence. Taehyun was close now. Close enough that she could see the muscle working in his jaw. Close enough that she could see the pain beneath his controlled expression. Do you have any idea, he said quietly, what it was like to wake up and find you gone? To call your phone and get nothing? To search for months, years, trying to understand what I had done wrong. Taehyun. I thought you used me. His voice cracked. I thought everything between us was a lie. I thought the first person I had ever truly loved had taken what she wanted and discarded me like trash. Zuri's tears finally fell. I'm sorry. Sorry doesn't erase 3 years. I know. But it's all I have. He stared at her for a long moment. Then slowly his hand reached up to touch her face. His fingers trembled. I never stopped looking for you, he whispered. Even when I hated you. Even when I convinced myself I was over you. I never stopped. Her heart shattered. Taehyun. The photograph I gave you last night, I've carried it everywhere for 3 years. It was the only thing I had left. The only proof that what we had was real. She remembered the image. Herself on the bridge. Laughing. Wearing the bracelet. Before everything fell apart. I threw the bracelet into the Han River, she confessed. The night I left. I was so angry. So scared. I wanted to erase every trace of you. Did it work? No. She looked up at him through her tears. You were always there. Every morning. Every night. Every time I closed my eyes. His thumb traced her cheekbone gently. What do we do now? She asked. We destroy the man who did this to us. Together. They sat on opposite ends of a white leather sofa, the folder open between them. Zuri watched Taehyun flip through the documents. His expression remained controlled, but his hands tightened with each page he turned. "This is everything," he said finally. "Financial records. Communication logs. Surveillance photographs. Park Jin-woo compiled a complete case against my uncle. Why would he do that? What does he gain? Revenge, probably." Taehyun closed the folder. Dae-young destroyed his career 10 years ago. Framed him for embezzlement and had him exiled from the organization. Park Jin-woo has been waiting for an opportunity to strike back. So we're just tools in his revenge scheme? We're allies with aligned interests. Taehyun's gaze met hers. Dae-young has been undermining me for years. He's tried to sabotage my business deals. He's turned other family members against me. And now I know he engineered the destruction of my relationship with you. His voice hardened. I have every reason to want him destroyed. What's your plan? Confront him. Present the evidence. Demand he answer for what he's done. And if he denies it, then I take his position. His influence. His access to the family council. Taehyun leaned back. The Kong organization isn't a democracy, but it has rules. If I can prove that Dae-young acted against the family's interests, against my father's wishes, the council will strip him of power. That sounds dangerous. It is. Dae-young won't go quietly. He has allies. Resources. People who benefit from his leadership. Taehyun's expression softened slightly. Which is why I need to ask you something. What? Will you trust me? The question hung between them. Zuri had spent 3 years convincing herself that Kang Taehyun couldn't be trusted. 3 years building walls. 3 years running from the possibility that she had made a mistake. But now she had evidence. Now she had truth. And now she had a choice. I trust you, she said quietly. I don't trust myself. I don't trust my judgment. I don't trust that I won't panic and run again. Her voice broke. But I trust you. Something shifted in his eyes. Relief. Gratitude. And beneath it all, barely visible, hope. Then stay, he said. Not forever. Not as a prisoner. But stay long enough for us to finish this. Stay long enough for us to give this a real chance. Zuri's heart ached. What about David? Taehyun's expression flickered. The architect. He's been a good friend to me. A good person. He doesn't deserve to be caught in whatever this becomes. I'm not asking you to choose between us. Then what are you asking? I'm asking you to be honest with me. With him. With yourself. Taehyun's voice dropped. I'm asking you not to disappear again without explanation. Fair enough. I won't, she promised. Whatever happens, whether we work or we don't, I won't leave without saying goodbye this time. He nodded slowly. That's all I needed to hear. 2 days later. Taehyun's Lagos operation was housed in a sleek office building in Victoria Island. Zuri had expected something intimidating, armed guards, dark corridors, the atmosphere of a gangster film. Instead she found bright open spaces, polished employees, and an art collection that rivaled some of the galleries she had visited. This is the legitimate side, Taehyun explained as they walked through the atrium. Technology investments. Real estate. International partnerships. And the other side? Handled separately. By people who don't know about this office. Or about you. She appreciated the boundary. They spent 2 days preparing for the confrontation with Dae-young. Taehyun made phone calls. Zuri organized the evidence. They ate meals together in his office. Takeout from local restaurants that Taehyun admitted he had grown to enjoy. Korean food is better, he said, picking at a plate of jollof rice. You're wrong. I'm never wrong. Then why are you still eating? He almost smiled. Somewhere in those 2 days the walls between them began to thin. They talked about the years they had lost. Zuri told him about building her event design business. Taehyun told her about taking control of the Kong organization after his father's death. Neither mentioned romance. Neither mentioned the kiss that still lingered in memory. But the tension was there. In the way his gaze followed her across the room. In the way her breath caught when their hands accidentally brushed. In the way silence between them felt more intimate than words. On the third night, Zuri was working late in Taehyun's office, organizing documents for their meeting the next day. He appeared in the doorway around midnight. You should sleep. I'm almost done. You've been almost done for 2 hours. She looked up, ready to argue, and found him watching her with an expression she couldn't identify. Not cold. Not controlled. Something raw. What? She asked. He crossed the room slowly. Stopped directly before her. I've spent 3 years convincing myself that I was over you. That what we had was a youthful mistake. That moving forward meant never looking back. Zuri held her breath. But standing here, he continued quietly, watching you work at my desk like you belong there, I realize I never stopped. Not for a single day. Her heart pounded. Taehyun. I don't expect anything from you. I know we have history. I know there's damage. I know trust takes time. He reached down and gently took her hand. But I need you to know that whatever happens with my uncle, whatever happens after, I am not letting you go again. His grip was warm, strong, trembling slightly at the edges. I'm scared, she admitted. Of what? Of loving you again. Her voice cracked. Of losing you again. His free hand rose to cup her face. Then we'll be scared together. And before either could think better of it, he leaned down and kissed her. The kiss was everything she remembered. And nothing like she expected. Gentle at first. Almost hesitant. Then deeper. Desperate. 3 years of silence and longing and regret poured into a single moment. Her hands fisted in his shirt. His fingers tangled in her hair. They clung to each other like survivors after a storm. When they finally broke apart, both were breathing hard. Taehyun rested his forehead against hers. I've been wanting to do that since the moment I saw you on that rooftop. Zuri laughed shakily. I've been wanting you to do that since the moment you walked through those elevator doors. Then why didn't you say something? Because I was trying to convince myself I hated you. Did it work? No. She looked up at him. I don't think I could ever hate you. No matter how hard I tried. His expression softened. Good. Because I don't think I could ever stop loving you. They held each other until dawn. Talking. Remembering. Planning the future they had been denied. And when the first light crept through the windows, Zuri realized something profound. She wasn't running anymore. David called the next afternoon. Zuri was in her apartment, packing a small bag for the trip to Seoul. She answered on the third ring. Zuri, where have you been? I've been trying to reach you for 2 days. I'm sorry. Guilt stabbed through her. Things have been complicated. Is it the Korean? She hesitated. Zuri, talk to me. I'm going to Seoul, she said finally. With him. There's something we need to resolve. Silence on the other end. Are you getting back together? I don't know. Maybe. We're still figuring things out. More silence. David. I knew this would happen. His voice was quiet. Not angry. Just sad. The moment I saw him walk into your party, I knew I had lost. You haven't lost anything. I lost you. Before I ever really had a chance. Zuri closed her eyes. I never meant to hurt you. I know. A long exhale. And I'm not angry. I just need time. Take as much as you need. Be careful over there, Zuri. Whatever business he has, whatever world he comes from, don't let it swallow you. I won't. Promise me. I promise. He hung up. Zuri stared at the phone for a long moment. Then she finished packing. The private jet was waiting at Murtala Muhammad Airport. The Kong family crest discreetly emblazoned on the tail. Taehyun was already inside reviewing documents. He looked up as Zuri boarded. Everything okay? David called. His jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. And I told him the truth. That I'm going to Seoul. That things between us have changed. Taehyun studied her carefully. How did he take it? Not well. But graciously. She sat across from him. He's a good man. I know. You don't like him. I don't like how he looks at you. Taehyun's honesty was brutal. I don't like that he's been there when I couldn't be. I don't like that he had 3 years with you while I had nothing. That's not his fault. I know. He looked away. Rationality doesn't eliminate jealousy. It just makes you aware that your emotions are irrational. Despite everything, she almost smiled. Is the great Kang Taehyun admitting to human emotions? Only to you. The tenderness beneath his words caught her off guard. I chose to be here, she said softly. Not with David. Not anywhere else. With you. His gaze returned to hers. I won't take that for granted. You better not. Seoul glittered beneath them like a circuit board come to life. Zuri had forgotten how beautiful the city was. How modern and ancient coexisted. How the Han River wound through the urban landscape like a silver ribbon. She had forgotten how much she had loved it here. And how much it had hurt to leave. The Kang compound was located in Hanam-dong, one of Seoul's most exclusive neighborhoods. The estate was enormous. Traditional Korean architecture blended with modern security systems. Stone walls. Manicured gardens. A small army of staff. Zuri felt out of place the moment she stepped through the gates. You'll be staying in the guest house, Taehyun said. Private entrance. Your own security. No one from the main house will bother you unless you want to be bothered. Is that normal? None of this is normal. He guided her down a garden path. But I want you to feel safe. The guest house was elegant and comfortable. Korean minimalism softened with warm textiles and fresh flowers. The confrontation with my uncle is tomorrow morning, Taehyun continued. Until then I need you to stay here. Don't leave the compound. Don't speak to anyone you don't recognize. You're scaring me. Good. Fear keeps you cautious. That night, Zuri lay awake in unfamiliar sheets, listening to the sounds of a city she had once called home. Somewhere in the main house, Kang Taehyun was preparing for war. And she was at the center of it. The family council met in a chamber that looked like it belonged in a period drama. Traditional Korean architecture. Low tables. Cushioned seating. An atmosphere heavy with centuries of tradition. Zuri waited in an adjoining room watching through a partially open screen. Kang Taehyun sat at the head of the gathering, his posture perfect, his expression unreadable. Across from him sat Kang Dae-young. Taehyun's uncle was older, late 50s, silver-haired, with a face that had once been handsome but was now hardened by years of scheming. He wore a traditional hanbok like most of the council members. He looked completely at ease. As though he had nothing to fear. I call this meeting to address a matter of family honor, Taehyun began, his voice carrying across the chamber. 3 years ago, actions were taken that violated the trust of this council and the wishes of my late father. What actions? One of the elders asked. The manipulation and sabotage of my personal life. Specifically, the deliberate destruction of a relationship I intended to formalize. Murmurs rippled through the council. Dae-young's expression didn't change. My nephew speaks of ancient history, he said smoothly. Romantic disappointments are hardly matters for this council. They are when they involve forgery, conspiracy, and the hiring of operatives to deceive a family member. Taehyun lifted the folder from his lap. I have evidence that Kang Dae-young orchestrated the fabrication of documents and photographs designed to make me appear involved in criminal activities I had explicitly rejected. These materials were then presented to the woman I loved, convincing her that remaining with me would endanger her life. Silence. Taehyun continued. The woman fled. Our relationship was destroyed. And I spent 3 years believing I had been betrayed when in fact I was the victim of an elaborate scheme designed to prevent my transition away from the family's underground operations. More murmurs. Dae-young leaned forward slightly. These are serious accusations. I have serious evidence. Taehyun opened the folder. Financial records showing payments to Han So-yeon, the operative who delivered the forged documents. Communication logs proving Dae-young's direct involvement. Surveillance footage placing him at meetings with individuals connected to the fabrication. He laid each document on the table. One by one. Like cards in a game he was already winning. The council examined the evidence in tense silence. Zuri watched Dae-young's face carefully. For the first time she saw cracks in his composure. These documents could be forged themselves, he said finally. Created by enemies seeking to divide the family. The source is credible, Taehyun replied. Park Jin-woo. Your former employee. The man you framed and exiled 10 years ago. A bitter fool seeking revenge. A meticulous investigator with no reason to lie. Taehyun's voice hardened. The council may verify every document. Every photograph. Every financial trail. I am confident of what they will find. Dae-young stood abruptly. I will not sit here and be accused by a lovesick child who... You will sit, one of the elders interrupted sharply, until the council has reached a determination. Dae-young froze. His eyes moved to Taehyun. Pure hatred burned in them. But he sat. The council deliberated for 3 hours. When they emerged, their verdict was unanimous. Kang Dae-young was stripped of his position. His access to family resources was revoked. He was given 48 hours to vacate the compound. And Kang Taehyun was confirmed as the undisputed head of the Kang organization. That night Taehyun came to the guest house. He looked exhausted. His jacket was gone, his shirt untucked, his hair slightly disheveled. For the first time he looked human. It's over? Zuri asked. The council portion is over. He sat heavily on the couch. Dae-young won't accept this quietly. He'll retreat, regroup, try to undermine me from outside the family. Then it's not really over. It's the beginning of the end. He looked at her. But you're safe now. The council knows what he did. They know about you. Hurting you would be seen as an attack on me, and by extension on the family. So I'm protected by association. You're protected because I refuse to allow anything else. His hand found hers. I told you I wouldn't let you go again. I meant it. Zuri squeezed his fingers. What happens now? Now we rebuild. Together. 2 weeks later. The transition of power was quieter than Zuri expected. Meetings. Paperwork. An endless stream of advisors and executives. Taehyun handled it all with calm efficiency. And slowly, gradually he began dismantling the underground operations. It won't happen overnight, he admitted one evening. There are people whose livelihoods depend on the illegal side. I have to transition them carefully. You're actually doing it. What you talked about 3 years ago. I'm finishing what you started. He brushed a strand of hair from her face. You made me want to be better. You made me believe it was possible. I didn't do anything. You loved me. That was everything. A month passed. Then Zuri found herself settling into life in Seoul, tentatively, cautiously but genuinely. She helped Taehyun redesign several of his hotel lobbies, bringing Nigerian influences into Korean spaces. She video called her mother weekly, slowly explaining the truth about what had happened 3 years ago. She even received a message from David, short, friendly, wishing her well. But something nagged at her. A decision she hadn't yet made. One afternoon she found Taehyun in his study, staring at a small velvet box. What's that? She asked. He looked up. For the first time in weeks he seemed nervous. Something I've been carrying for a long time. He opened the box. Inside was a ring. Simple. Elegant. A single diamond set in platinum. I bought this 3 years ago, he said quietly. Before you left. I was going to propose. Zuri's breath stopped. I kept it because I couldn't bring myself to return it. Or give it to anyone else. It was always meant for you. He stood and crossed to her. I know we've only been back together for 2 months. I know there's still healing to do. I know I'm probably moving too fast. You definitely are. I don't care. He took her hand. Zuri Okafor. I have loved you since the moment you told me Korean hips don't move. I lost you once and nearly destroyed myself trying to get you back. I will not lose you again. Tears streamed down her face. Marry me, he said simply. Not today. Not tomorrow. Whenever you're ready. But say yes. Please. Let me spend the rest of my life proving I deserve you. He said yes. 6 months later. Lagos, Nigeria. The wedding was held on a rooftop terrace overlooking the Lagos Lagoon. Not the same rooftop where Taehyun had arrived uninvited. A different one. One Zuri had designed herself. Afro-Korean fusion was everywhere. Korean silk blended with Nigerian oso-oak. Traditional Korean drumming accompanied Yoruba praise singing. 2 cultures meeting in the middle. 2 families becoming one. Zuri's mother cried throughout the ceremony. I always knew, she whispered after. Even when I was afraid for you. I knew he was the one. How? Because you never stopped loving him. Even when you thought you hated him. Taehyun's speech was short. 3 years ago, I walked into a woman's birthday celebration without an invitation. I carried a gift she didn't want. I asked questions she wasn't ready to answer. Laughter rippled through the gathered guests. I did that because I was desperate. Because I had spent 3 years searching for someone I thought I had lost forever. Because I needed to know if there was still a chance. He turned to Zuri. There was. And standing here today, surrounded by your family, your friends, the people who have loved you your entire life, I want to say publicly what I should have said privately a long time ago. He took her hands. You are the reason I became a better man. You are the reason I chose to dismantle an empire of darkness and build something worthy of the woman I love. You are my heart, my conscience, my home. Tears rolled down Zuri's cheeks. I don't deserve you, he continued. But I will spend every day of my life trying to. He kissed her then. Not for the cameras. Not for the guests. For her. Only for her. That night. They stood together on the balcony of their hotel suite, watching the city lights below. Remember the first time you brought me a gift? Zuri asked. The bracelet. Yes. She touched the new one on her wrist. A replacement he had given her the day she said yes. I threw the original in a river because I was trying to forget you. Did it work? You know it didn't. He pulled her closer. Good. Because I never want to be forgotten by you. She leaned into him. You never will be. Somewhere in Seoul, the Kong organization was quietly transforming. Somewhere in Lagos, Zuri's mother was already planning their first grandchild's naming ceremony. Somewhere between 2 continents and 2 cultures, a love that had almost been destroyed was finally allowed to flourish. And on that rooftop under a sky full of stars, Kang Taehyun held the woman who had changed his life. I love you, he said. I know. Zuri smiled. I love you too. He kissed her forehead. Forever. Forever. Thank you for reading. Please like, share and subscribe for more Afro-Korean dark romance stories.